I'm going to have a lot of courage today. I'm going to tell you something that I have not told a single person. I tried to tell somebody yesterday, but I felt such a sense of shame overcome me that my mind closed down. My face got so red like a rose, but it wasn't a pretty rose. It was a rose of shame because shame rose into my face. So I'm going to tell you something today that I have never told anyone, but I'm going to ease us both into it because it is such an admission of guilt, yeah? But more so, it's an admission of shame. I'm going to start us off really easy. I purchased this glass for 50 cents at a thrift shop nearby. It occurred to me when I saw it that it would make the perfect drinking glass, because I like to drink water maybe once or twice an hour, especially when I notice that my urine is golden. I'll use the bathroom, my urine will be gold, and I'm thinking to myself, it's time to get a glass. Being a creature of ritual, I like to have a specific glass for a specific task. Problem. I'm on a budget. If I'm going to have a specific glass for a specific task, it needs to be cheap. It needs to be inexpensive. I'm frugal. I am a thrift shopper. So, when I saw this glass, I felt an immediate affinity, a kinship for the glass. I purchased the glass for 50 cents. Problem. Someone else's lips may have been on this, but certainly were on this. Who are we kidding? But I don't know. Maybe something else. Anything could have happened with this glass. They could have used it for quite gruesome and vulgar purposes. I don't know. So when I brought it home, I boiled the glass. But then I was scared because I was like, I don't know, I've never heard about boiling glass on a stovetop. I put it in a pot. I purchased the pot from that same thrift store, so I had to boil the water in the pot to sanitize the pot, and then I put this in here in the pot to sanitize the glass, so I wouldn't get any germs. But even now, I can still smell something, and I don't know what it is. It's not the smell of the pot. It's not the smell of the boiling water. Maybe it's the smell of the freezer, because I put it in the freezer. I figured I'd boil it, let it cool down, put it in the freezer. But I'm actually misrepresenting reality. I put it in the freezer first to kill any germs. Then I boiled it, then I put it back in the freezer. But there's still something in me, because I'm so civilized. Can you imagine someone 1,000 years ago having this problem? I read somewhere, I don't remember where, that civilization is a factor of how much we marginalize as vulgar. So as we progress in our civilized, domesticated ways, more things become vulgar. It's one of the distinguishing characteristics of civilization. I would also add that domestication is another distinguishing characteristic of civilization. How we're domesticated, which then makes me think, are we really civilized if we're domesticated? Another time, maybe. Back to the glass. There's a smell. I don't know where this smell comes from. Maybe it's a unique combination of boiled water, glass, the previous owner, the freezing temperature of the freezer, and any kind of lingering aroma from the items inside the freezer. Maybe it's just an epiphenomena of my olfactory sense, kicking in, getting mischievous. I took a drink from this. It was a difficult drink. I didn't think of human beings 1,000 years ago, before we got really civilized. I just thought of my own needs in the present moment. That's how I had to do it. As if one foul odor would ruin the drinking experience altogether. Imagine the foul thoughts in my mind that would ruin the consciousness altogether. Good thing I like foul thoughts. So, by now I've broken you in. You know what I'm dealing with, and you can no doubt relate to many of the things that I've discussed. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to take us into the next leg of the journey. Leg is not an accidental choice. Leg comes from the crotch, the midsection of the body. That's where we're going next. What I haven't told anybody, I'm coming out of the closet where I picked up my boxers, ironically. These boxers haven't always been mine. They didn't come from the packaging at Ross or Marshall's or Kmart. They may have, but I didn't purchase that package. I didn't open that package. I picked these up at a thrift store. They were not in a package in the thrift store. This is very difficult for me. I feel so much fear right here. So much shame. I purchased these boxers yesterday, used, from Goodwill. I haven't washed them yet. I haven't washed them yet, and I'm holding them. I feel extremely uncivilized right now, barbaric. I feel undomesticated. I feel like I just transported myself back 1,000 years by touching boxers before the dawn of civilization. Someone else used these boxers. Now maybe no one else did, but I have to imagine the worst. That someone owned these boxers for years. They have fecal remains, urinary residue, and just a general stench of body odor. And yet to me, because they come from before the dawn of civilization, they smell perfect. This is from the Middle Ages. That gap between the classical world and the Enlightenment, the Reformation, all of that good stuff, the Renaissance. This is from the year 1017. This is 1,000 years old. I just happened to find it in a Goodwill yesterday. But I'm going to go deeper into the admission of my shame and my guilt. And I hope you can companion me in these deep, dark, and dank corridors from before civilization. I purchased these from a Brooklyn Goodwill probably 2 years ago. They had holes in them where the butt was. I stitched up the holes. It was very thin fabric there, very well-worn fabric. Maybe somebody sat on these hundreds of thousands of times. I've even thought of naming my boxers. Fred, for example. Fred. Fred is 1,000 years old from before civilization. I only buy boxers that say to me, that they are at least a millennia old. If I'm in front of a pair of boxers at a thrift store and I want to buy them, I close my eyes, I go deep into my center, and I imagine someone wearing this 1,000 years ago. Does this come from before time? Before all the madness that we call our civilization? Did someone who is undomesticated, wild, free, wear these? Before vulgarity meant what vulgarity means today. Fred, Brooklyn, a couple years ago maybe. This one's Terry. This one was purchased in Manhattan proper. I was reluctant to wash this for several months. This had the smell and the odor of a warrior who died in battle. I could just feel my testosterone accelerating throughout the entire frame of my powerful corpus. This, when I smell Terry's briefs, and this is not homoerotic, though I don't have anything against homoeroticism, it's just not. I feel undomesticated when I smell these boxers. Julie was a very feminine woman, but she wore briefs. Go figure. 1,000 years old, maybe even 1,200 years old. I can still smell Julie. She was a temple priestess. I don't know why she wore boxers back then, but she was evidently a very deep and gifted priestess. Maybe like Cassandra, who was doomed to always be disbelieved for her prophecy. The unknown soldier. Totally anonymous briefs. Evidently American. It took me probably 6 years to wash these, although I wore them every day. Sebastian. I haven't really concocted a story for Sebastian yet. Holy shit. God, I feel so real. I exist before civilization. I'm so raw. I'm so visceral. I'm so present. I'm not distracted by my cell phone, by my 9-to-5 job, by my email, by all the games. Sebastian. Some politician. Maybe Lycurgus of Sparta. Demosthenes of Athens. Cicero of Rome. When I hold this pair of boxers, I'm before civilization, but I'm not, because I'm part of antiquity, the classical civilizations. So I have a mixed feeling. Part of me is ennobled by the grandeur of their oratory and their sophisticated political skill. Part of me says, fuck all that. I'm a barbarian out on the plains. No one is in control of me. I hope you're okay with me going through all these boxers that I purchased at Goodwill or other thrifts, Salvation Army. God, if body odor could smell like a flower, Catherine. Probably 1300 years ago. Catherine wore this while she milked the cows out back. She saw birds flying overhead that pretended dire future omens, aviary omens. Catherine, I don't know if Catherines existed back then. I don't know if that's a name that had been invented yet, but this is Catherine. Another woman who wore briefs. These are two others. My last two. I don't know how many that makes now. I haven't named these yet. I got these yesterday from that Goodwill. Evidently I had a successful day. There were 3 pairs of boxers that I thought easily harkened back at least a millennia. I'll name these when I feel it. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's not easy buying a used pair of boxers. You have to get over all of the uncivilized and undomesticated vulgarity, the smells, right? You have to get over your vivid imagination that displaces your real need for undergarments and takes the helm, takes the reins, and just frankly takes you somewhere else. You're not in the here and now with your used pair of boxers. And then if that's a problem for me, you can only imagine what kind of problem it was for the district manager, who happened to be manning the register at the moment that I brought my 3 pairs of 1,000-year-old used boxers for purchase. What do you do when you're a district manager? Do you refuse to pick up a used pair of boxers that's from your own store? Do you refuse? He picked them up. And I said to him, hey man, I could use your advice on something, or at least your feedback. Do you think that those boxers would work for me? I need them to feel and to smell as if they're 1,000 years old. And he just looked at me, the pompous prick. He looked at me with that fucking superiority complex, that arrogance. He was in a suit. The person who was manning the register was on break. And he set me back maybe 1,000 years. He set me back with shame. He wanted me to feel shame for buying a used pair of boxers. Because evidently he was too sophisticated, he was too civilized in his suit and his tie, in his haircut, in his clean-shaven face, to even conceive of buying a used pair of boxers, much less a pair of boxers that was 1,000 years old, worn by some barbarian before the dawn of time, notwithstanding classical antiquity. All that was lost. Greece, Rome, forget about it. So now, here I am, trying to man up and not feel shame about the fact that I want to connect to the barbaric. I want to connect to the vulgar. And I do not want to feel shame over wearing a used pair of boxers from Goodwill.